Welcome to Drinkin Bros, presented by BlackRifleCoffee.com.
Hey now.
Welcome
All right.
to Drinkin Bros. Is there somebody missing?
Yes, Jared
What's he doing?
Corn Dog, Lord Corn Dog. Is that what you guys?
Yeah.
Lord Corn Dog
is dropping
Lord
a corn dog
Cornhole. Actually, right as we're about to go live,
Literally gets up and says, "I've got to take a shit."
yes,
Announces
So-
that he's got to take a shit. I mean, we have a big time guest here. No, he gave zero fucks, and he did give a shit. Literally,
Yes.
he's giving a shit.
right now.
Actually, literally, not figuratively.
I
But I mean-
should take one of the cameras and just walk in there and surprise him.
Yeah, and just say, "Hey guys, we were supposed to go at this time.
Yeah.
Why are you not scheduling your shitting on? Like, I've never seen anything like it. Because he shits at weird times too, where it's like usually it's in the morning. You have some coffee, you get up,
He is.
take a shit.
Does he have performance anxiety? Where
I
it's
think
like,
that's exactly irritable bowel syndrome. Where
Yeah.
it's
IBS?
IBS,
Yeah, it's
but
like,
it
hey, we're about
starts
to go.
with.
Oh, I got to take a shit.
Oh
Yes.
man,
Without me.
I
And-
had a friend with IBS, and he would take shits in the weirdest, most awful places at all times.
So here's the deal. IBS, though, I've been watching, and I'm a medical professional.
You
so
bet.
I watch people that say they have IBS, and all of them seem to have the same symptom. They eat way too much fucking food. I don't think they have IBS. I think they cram 9 pounds of food down their belly, and then they do it again. And the minute they do, it's like, I got to shit.
No, my buddy ate on a normal schedule and tried to keep his diet relatively healthy, simply for the fact of the worse you eat, the worse your IBS is.
See, again, I don't.
And
I'm going to have to throw the flag on that.
here's a crazy one. He was hooking up with this girl at her house, and he, in the middle of the night, they had sex, and
Yeah, I like where this is going.
oh boy, in the middle of the night they were having sex. He finishes, and he's like, "Oh my god, I am gonna fucking shit the bed. I am gonna absolutely sully this bed." And so he gets up, goes down, and he's like, "Oh, where's your restroom at?" Because he's shit everywhere there is on God's green earth. When you have IBS, you know where to shit. And she's like, "Oh, it's in the hallway, but it's broken." Like the thing, she's like, "Just pee and don't flush. Just pee and don't flush. The toilet's broken." And he doesn't want to say,
Yes,
"I've got to
I
take
gotta
a shit."
have a number two.
Yeah. So he gets down there and he's like, "I'll work on the toilet. I'll just work on the toilet. Maybe I can fix it or whatever." Realizes he can't fix this toilet. Like the water's off, like all of it. And he's just like, oh my God. He is bursting at the seams, bursting.
That's
and he's
the
just
worst.
like,
When you do the walk,
So,
you
yeah,
walk
yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit, and then you stop, and you're like, go away, go away, go away, don't shit, don't shit, don't shit. And
So
you're
he's,
like, okay, I'm
dude,
good.
he's going through this house and he's like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Where do I shit? And
Oh my God, he goes for the cat litter.
No, he doesn't go for the cat litter. He goes because he knows when he
That's a
shits.
good idea. It's
a
Yeah,
great
it
idea.
is.
It
It
would've
is.
been good.
He knows it's explosive and you can't use a cat litter because that was one of the first
Yeah.
questions we asked. So we're like, where'd you go? And he goes, I went to her washer. He opened up the washer, took a shit inside the washer,
Ran the heavy cycle after that
Yes.
with some soap.
Yep.
Boom.
Ah,
Little
good
bleach
luck,
in
man.
there.
threw a
Yeah.
bunch of
Dunzo.
towels,
That's-
in there, and started doing the wash. And she was like, he comes back upstairs, cleans himself up, wipes his ass with one of the towels, comes back upstairs, and she's like, is the washer on? Like, why is the washer on? And he's like, oh, he was like, well, I peed and went to dry my hands. He was like, I used your hand towel. So I threw it in the washer. Like I didn't.
What a sweet
This
guy.
guy,
didn't-
management
See,
material. I don't
now-
know what he does. Management
Yeah,
material.
now that's
he's
a guy
he's
who
a man.
can-
He's a manager.
Is
That's
he?
a guy who
manages
management
bars.
material. I like
Manages
this.
bars
That is
and
a guy who
restaurants.
can think.
Promote
on the
ahead of
fly.
peers.
Yeah.
Now here's the real question.
By the way, for those of you listening,
Yeah, please intro our guest.
JT not only walked out on what I think is the best guest that'll ever be on this
That's
show,
absolutely.
who's been on there before and been on Launch Code, but he's also one of my best friends in the entire world. Tyler the Gray is here. And JT didn't give a
One
fuck.
day I hope to become Tyler the White.
Tyler,
See what I did there? That's a
Tyler
nerd
the
reference.
Gray. Yeah.
If you're a nerd, you got that one.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So that's who you're hearing.
Thanks for having Ross and Bert and not JT.
Not JT.
Yeah, not Jared. It's funny, around the Black Rifle offices and all of our friends, because we are actually all best friends in real life. Like people
Yes.
always ask all the time. Everybody said you were the biggest badass.
That's absolutely not
Is that true?
No. I would say
I have
Evan
never-
he just hides it really well.
I have never, you know what? Tyler and Evan are very similar to each other. You'll never ever hear them say they're good at anything.
Exactly.
Ever.
But I've heard it from everybody else.
Ever.
So like Matt's always saying like, dude, that's the biggest badass there is.
Tyler is I will speak for him because he won't do it, but Tyler's the type of guy that if you met him, you'd probably meet him somewhere like Comic-Con or at the grocery store. Or
Okay, there is truth to that.
But if you met him and talked to him for 5 minutes, you'd have
Comic-Con
no
is
clue
true.
what his background is and who he is and what he is, his capabilities, if you will. He's hands down one of the baddest dudes you'll ever
This
meet.
is not true, but
That's awesome.
one day.
And I'll go ahead and say it since it is Drinkin Bros. Tyler's also packing one of the biggest dongs you'll
That's
ever
what I
see.
heard. We talked about your dick for a good 20 minutes before we got on the show today, and I found that phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it's there's good conversation in a lot of different.
You married?
No.
Where are you throwing that dick around these days?
I throw it pretty specifically one direction. But
He's super uncomfortable right now because we're talking about. He does not. He will divert this in 2 seconds. I don't know
So
where this is
describe his hammer. Would you say
I've
like,
never seen. I'm just giving him a hard
like
time.
6 flaccid? No, everybody else was talking about his dick. If you got a hog on you, you got a hog on you.
Let's just
unleash the
say
beast. Yeah,
if,
unleash
if
the Kraken.
Red Bull made a 16-ounce can.
It's a 16-ounce Red Bull can.
The reality is it's 5 inches, but it's thick like a fucking Coke bottle.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Look, you know who else is like that? I saw a picture of John Mayer's cock.
How do you see that? Like, where does that? How does that come?
Great.
So you're saying you haven't seen it? Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Do you not have the internet?
Great question.
No.
So, Katy Perry dates a lot of famous people, right?
Who is Katy Perry?
The pop singer. Baby, you're a firework.
Yeah,
I
Bert,
will have
you
to-
are up to speed on pop culture.
Bert,
aren't you?
I cannot. Who is Katy Perry?
I'm on it. I'm googling.
Jesus
this
Christ.
is this
So
one. Come on.
She's the Party in the USA girl.
That's Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
Okey-dokey. Katy
So
Perry.
with Katy Perry, she had an infamous picture maybe 6 months ago with her and Orlando Bloom. They were paddleboarding, and he was buck naked. And you saw Orlando Bloom's dick, and you were like,
saw Orlando Bloom.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And so the comment was brought up when they were like, well, that's not the first celebrity dick pic that Katy Perry's been involved in. And they showed this picture of John Mayer. He was holding it with 2 hands like it was a fucking like a sandwich out of Quiznos that he was taking home. And I was like,
Hoagie dick. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, fuck.
That Quiznos.
Yeah, where, you
They
know where
even have
you hold it,
Quiznos?
you
I
double.
created it like a child. You know,
Yeah.
it's you got to hold the head because of the weight.
And
you know,
I was, I mean,
they don't
Perry.
have very strong necks at that age.
I did a video called "We Are All Harambe" where it was dicks out for Harambe. So I was looking for all these people with their dicks out. So I used that picture of John Mayer and Orlando Bloom in the video. And but I'll be honest, like I'm not gay, I'm married obviously, but I stared at John Mayer's dick pic for like a good 8 minutes, and I was just like, man, it was like he was holding a 16-ounce Red Bull can, and it was a 2-hander where it was just like fuck. Yeah. It was kind of like grabbing a large bass out of a stream where you're just like, oh.
Yeah,
Well,
and
let's-
the
let's-
bass is like trying to get away, like get back in the water, but you're
Yeah.
no, you're
Let's-
fucking my bass.
I don't want to sharpshoot
Oh,
anybody,
wait,
but
what?
for the
Wait, okay.
for the country crowd out there, we'll just have to forgive Ross. So you don't grab a bass out of a stream. That's a lake fish. But
All right.
Oh,
let's
well,
let's hit
freshwater stream.
Let's hit the real issue here.
JT
What level
bailing
of
on his
shit
own.
is JT taking right now?
I don't
he's
know.
Not back.
Because here's what I love is
I am scared
documenting
for
things.
him.
Right now, we're 8 minutes into a healthy shit.
Or
where-
possibly unhealthy. At
And,
this
and
point.
somebody
That
with
might-
somebody with ADD like Jared, he's going through his phone right now. Like it is. I mean, yeah, he's on Yelp reviews of places.
Yeah.
It's like all of those numbers in fucking Minority Report. Like he's.
That's what I pictured the same thing.
Yeah, he's
It's like-
Tom
it's
Cruise
swiping,
movie.
yeah.
It's like one of those shits
Yeah.
where you sit on the toilet for so long that when you go to wipe, you realize it's already like auto wiped and there's nothing there because it just dried up and it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
those
that's
are
how
the
long you've been in
best.
it. Yeah.
Clean break.
It's a clean break.
I think like
Clean
Jared to me is one of
Those
those
are the
people.
best in the jungle too. You know?
Jared's one of those.
That's
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
get a poop in the
leaf
on a
shit.
field
Yeah.
field exercise,
Leaf
you get one of
wipes.
those, and
Yeah.
you're like, you go to wipe, and you're like with that little tiny
One
MRE
literal
napkin.
piece of an MRE
Yes,
napkin,
and you're like,
you go to wipe, and you go,
nothing?
and there's nothing there, and you go,
Yeah.
and you're like, you just look up at the sky, and you go, it was the perfect shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
yeah, it's awesome.
In
It's a
any
good
form
feeling.
of life, we've all been military, non-military. Have that perfect shit where you're out and you're like, There's one square left, and it's like if this is messy, not only is it getting on the rest of your hands, but then you have no other square left after that. Like you've used your square.
No, this just recently happened to me. Was it McDonald's? I forget. But the point of the story, like JT right now, I had shit. Was it McDonald's? It was McDonald's. I go to
great
wipe,
restaurant, by the way.
no toilet paper.
Ugh.
And I'm just like, oh my God. And I had to transition to the seat.
Seat cover?
The seat covers.
That is not a.
Yeah.
That
It's
is not.
just the wrong consistency of material.
It's
You know, it's like way too slick. There's no
Yikes.
grab. Like there's no texture.
Yes.
And it was just like, it was like wiping my ass with silk. It's just not grabbing anything.
Well-
it's just like
Oof.
rubbing.
And then you have the opposite of the clean break, which is I call it the magic marker, where you wipe like 74 times, and every time you wipe, there's still poo on the toilet paper. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're really going through it, like 3/4 of a roll is gone.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I should have flushed this 20 minutes
Yeah.
ago. Now this isn't gonna be able to flush.
And then the next
This
thing you
is
know,
bad.
you're obviously like the next day you're going back to Costco.
Yeah, and you'd rather just jump in the shower where you're like, man, these days if you're going past 3 wipes, it's like, I'll fucking jump in the
Well,
shower.
it's just,
I
and it's
can't.
that point where you just stop and go, I need a European toilet.
Yeah.
This
Oh
is the
God,
solution.
Japan!
A
My
bidet.
Yeah, you're like,
apartment in
Japan?
Japan had the auto toilet with heater. We've
So-
had that. We've talked about it.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it is
the
magic.
bidet.
So speaking of,
bidet in that.
we tried to get Jack here. He couldn't be here because he's busy with the
Yak
fam.
Osborne.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was at Jack's. I was actually at Jack's parents' house, and I'm like, "Hey, where's the restroom?" So I go to the restroom. I sit on this toilet,
Magic.
and I look down, and it wasn't until I get to the point of flushing that I look down and realize, I shit you not, no pun intended.
Well,
this
too late.
this toilet has, no kidding, 20 fucking buttons.
It's great.
But here's the thing.
With pictures.
But here's the thing. They're like not listed what they do. So they've got these pictures, but I think it was from Japan where the pictures aren't extremely like, I couldn't tell from the pictures what the button did. So I just have to start like working my way through the buttons. So I just start hitting them. Okay, let me tell you. First off, none of those buttons are flush. A. B. Every single one of those buttons is some different form of awesome.
Oh boy, it's heated, right?
I
The
couldn't even
the
tell you what
seats
half
are
of them are.
heated.
I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know what is happening down there right now, but it feels kind of good.
Man,
You know, it's just, and I was like, when I came out, I'm like, okay, how much are those toilets? It was like $5,000. It was like a $5,000.
Did you get it?
Toilet. I think I finally flushed it, but I may have also launched a heavy Falcon rocket. Like SpaceX program because
Blown
there was
up.
I programmed something. I don't know.
yeah.
Tesla's
There
missing
was
something
new-
right
yeah,
now.
there's-
Yeah, I read there's a country in Europe that they have these poop axes, and it's
What are-
basically
say that again?
poop axes.
Poop
axe.
axes?
Axe, yeah.
Like a fire axe, but for poop.
Yes, and so if it's too big because they don't want the toilets clogging up and shit, they want you to use the poop axe and
that's
chop it in
Not
half.
happening.
And
Not happening in my
Yeah.
house. Not happening in my house.
You know who needs a poop axe? J fucking T. Where the fuck
Yeah.
are you,
crazy.
JT?
So for
Are
the
you
au-
okay?
For the audience at home, we're on minute 13 of
Minute
Jared's
13,
shit,
yes.
which
This
is
is-
crazy.
Yeah.
I bet he's sleeping. He probably took a nap.
I'm not even mad. I'm amazed.
Real quick, give the audience your military background.
Ooh.
I was in the military, U.S. Army, Special Operations, and yeah, that's about it.
How long?
Almost 10 years.
10 years. How many times were you deployed?
A few.
He's not going to answer your questions. This is classic Tyler.
Ballpark it.
No, it's like military is irrelevant.
Ballpark it.
I like military. Actually, you know what? You bring up a good point. So
This is a perfect.
no. But
perfect
this is
segue.
this is a
Well,
this
no,
is
because
actually a
I want the
perfect
audience to know. Everybody
perfect
loves
segue.
you, but
No,
I want the audience to know.
No, but this is a great segue. This is a great segue, and this is where, like, you know, I'm working with one of my good buddies right now, Dan, who Bert knows. But the thing is like, the reason that I stopped kind of going into the military thing is because once you set up, like, once you start talking about your specifics of your service, there's an unintended comparison. And then this is a real subject that I'm glad we brought up, because the fact is, if it was 1 deployment, 0 deployments, or 100, what does that really mean? And here's where I'm going with it. It's like all the ways right now that the veteran community is like, there's so many similarities, but like what unit you were in, what time you were in, your deployments, when you were deployed to a combat zone, was it a shitty time? Was it a relatively quiet time? All those things are things that kind of separate they're things that are differences. And in reality, it's like there's more similarities than there are differences. So it's like, hey, you were in the military? That's cool. We're the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
I am. The reason why I do it specifically on this show,
Yeah, sorry.
and not so much so in real life, is about 75-80% of our listeners are military. So like they like to identify with which branch someone was in, how many times they got deployed, just because when and where they are listening currently, because a lot of our listeners are overseas serving right now.
Yeah.
They like to identify with them and said, oh man, I'm in the same unit he's in. I'm doing the same stuff he was in, or I was deployed the same amount of times that he was in. And it kind of brings at least a familiarity to them of who you are and what you went through. And you know, a lot of them look at it like, when I get out transition wise, because we're going to talk about your amazing television career, I might want to do this.
No,
but
I got you.
But it's not possible because look, somebody who's served as long as you and has had as many deployments, whatever that number is, one would think to yourself, all right, man, that's a hell of a lot of your life. How did this guy have time to switch careers and do something totally different and be just as successful in it as you?
No, that's a great point. So, I mean, to summarize, I spent the first half of my whole time was in U.S. Army Special Operations. First half of my career was in 2nd Ranger Battalion. Spent most of my time there as a sniper, which was an awesome job. Spent the second half of my career out of Fort Bragg. I got medically retired after getting hurt in Sadr City, Iraq. And then I spent, after that, probably 5 to 7 years just going through surgeries and rehab.
And while you were doing that, like, did you ever dream any of this would have been possible one day during all of that?
That's a great question, and actually, I'm glad you asked me that. So the biggest thing, like somebody asked me, it was actually an organization called the SOCOM Care Coalition. They're kind of like a Wounded Warriors, but for the Special Operations community, or Wounded Warrior Battalion for the Special Operations community. And they said, what would have helped you? What would have helped you in your transition? What would have helped you in the hospital? What would have helped you with your injury? And I said, myself in the future coming back and talking to myself in the hospital. And they're like, well, obviously that's not possible. And I'm like, well, fuck, I know.
Right,
but
right.
Find people with similar injuries, that are past, 5 years past an injury and link them up. My point that I'm making is that the one thing I learned is whether it's an injury or whether it's even just your military service, like the one thing that I try and explain to people is you can only ever see it for what it is, not what it will be. And everything, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, every experience in your life, like you view it differently, obviously 5 years, 10 years, 15 years later than you viewed it while it was happening. And the other part on that, it's like my injury. At the time, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And then 5 years later, probably still the worst thing that ever happened to me. 10 years later, I'm like, fuck, man, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
And then it's a constant evolution. Like, you don't ever really know what's the best or the worst thing. Only hindsight will tell you what it really meant in your life. And to answer your question, no, there was a good portion of my post-injury time that I couldn't see the forest for anything but the trees. It's just like, it ended my military career, which was, a job that I wanted to do my entire life. It's all I took a considerable amount of effort to get to where I was. I loved the job. I loved everything about it, and it was taken away. And I had to get over the anger of that, of it being taken away, and kind of then go, okay, like that's gone. I can't change it. Now, how do I move forward? And again, I think for the broader audience, like whether it's an injury or whether it's ETSing or just getting out of the military, it's like, it's the same thing ultimately, is that like someone's like, dude, I can't wait to get out. I can't wait to get out. I can't wait to get out. That is you're still in when you're saying that. And then one day you're out and then you're like,
oh man,
holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude, why did I fucking get out? I so want to get back in. And it's such a common thing. Like you don't know, hindsight's 20/20. And it's just at a certain point, you have to make a decision to either you're going to go back or you're going to move forward. There's no such, we're all sharks. Like we do not stay in one place and survive. We're either going backwards or we're going forwards. And at some point you have to make the decision that you're going to move forward and move on to a different phase of your life.
Do you remember that day that you made that decision, and was what you're doing now part of that decision process of like, hey, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go and do this.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you asked me that because I do remember the exact moment, and I've never actually been asked about it, but I do remember the moment. And it
Where were you?
I was in my office, like, you know, my little personal office at my house at the time, and I can't remember exactly the factors that led up to it, but I just remember, you know, it was like after one of the surgeries, and I was on, you know, pain meds, you know, on and off for years. And I just remember being like really down. I couldn't do anything for a couple years because just surgery, then rehab, and it just, you know, didn't leave a lot of time to actually go do anything. So, or, you know, I physically couldn't do much. My arm was always in a cast or in some weird ass contraption. So I remember sitting there, and I remember just being really down. And I can't remember where it came from, but I just remember going, you know what? Like, fuck this. Like, fuck this stagnation. Like, I just felt really down, and I'm like, I am not going to let this get me down. I'm not going to let this stop my progress. And I just had this like inherent like, fuck you. And I looked in the mirror, went to the bathroom, and I remember I looked in the mirror and I went, fuck you. And I wasn't talking to like me. I was talking to just this, I was talking to doubt inside me, or what had kept me. And I just was like, I'm going to do something. And I'm going to take this. Like, I was mad that I had gotten out, or, you know, mad that I had gotten medically retired. And it was just a moment where I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to take that. I'm not going to go backwards. And I'm going to go, okay, from here, what do I want to do going forward? And it led to me, I remember I booked this networking conference. I'll never forget this. I booked this, and I didn't know anyone at the time because all my friends were still in the military.
Sure.
I didn't really have any friends that were out. And I booked this networking conference, and from that networking conference, which it was like 3 months, you know, it was 3 months later than when I booked it. And I was just like, I'm going to get all this done before that conference. And I gave myself a definitive event. I gave myself a timeline. I'm like, at this event, I'm going to go, I'm going to meet people, I'm going to start networking, I'm going to make some shit happen. And ultimately, in a long, unexplainable, it'd take hours to explain it, but that's actually ultimately how I'm here right now.
That's amazing.
In a 10-year timeline of all these different things, but
sure. Well, that's what the entertainment industry is. Yeah. It's, you know, very rarely do you find somebody with overnight success where it's just like, boom, that was awesome. My life was awesome after that. It takes a lot of networking, meeting people, all that shit. You can attribute success and jobs and things along the way. Like, again, in hindsight, we were like, oh fuck, that one dinner, that one thing I was at 10 years ago, that led me to here. And you know,
well, and two things for my relationship with Tyler. If you haven't, for those of you guys that are listening, guys and girls, go to iTunes or wherever you can find it and get the movie That Which I Love Destroys Me, which is a documentary Tyler did. Arguably one of the most powerful documentaries that I've seen any vet in these modern conflicts produce. And Tyler really gets into Tyler. It shows him before his injury. It shows the units that he was in. It shows what he does and what he did before he was injured. And then it shows his rehabilitation afterwards. And it's powerful. Tyler's in I don't know, it was a GoPro or something, but it has a camera in his personal little office at his house. And he gets really into some one-on-one time with just the camera about his life. It's one of the best documentaries you'll ever see. And it's on military stuff. And I'm not saying it because he's my best friend. I'm saying it because it's really good. That which I love destroys me. And you can get it on iTunes. The other one is Tyler had done a bunch of, before I met him, he had already done some consulting and advising in television, but I'll never forget, Tyler doesn't get down that often. He's one of the most positive people you'll ever meet. But I was talking to Tyler and he's like, man, I'm just down today. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, oh, no, nothing. And pulled it out of him. And you were working on Call of Duty. And you told me that
Medal of Honor,
yeah. But doing the video game stuff, and somebody was beating you up on the internet about it. And it was, for me, it put things in perspective. Do you remember that conversation?
No, I don't. Actually,
somebody was just being a fucking troll and saying, whatever, that guy does stuff in Hollywood. Had no clue what your background is, but that's it. Just cracks me up. Like, oh, here's another Army vet trying to look cool in Hollywood and do video games and TV stuff. And it's just like, watching this guy troll Tyler, and it just put it in perspective. I'm just like, this fucking guy has no fucking clue who he's talking about.
Right.
But that happens a lot, I think. And Tyler and Dan and these guys that are pushing through. And, I've got other buddies. Tyler's got a lot more than I do, but buddies that are making it in your industry. And it hasn't been without, like, since I met you, I mean, there's been times where I've had to borrow money from him because I was broke.
Right.
Candace and I were broke. He's had to borrow money from me to go on a trip to get more work.
Yeah, literally.
And that was not that long ago.
No,
Tyler literally said to me, he said, hey,
I hate
borrow
$200 cash.
He said, hey, Bert, I pulled me aside. We were around some other people, and he was getting ready to get on a plane to go to Taiwan for a job, and he wasn't going to get paid till the end of the job. And he said, I know shit. Can I borrow a couple $100? I have
Dude, that was like 2 years ago.
I have no money right now.
Yeah.
Like not
so
a
it's
dollar to my name. Like it's not a dollar.
And the easy answer for him would have been to just fall into that backdrop of doing tactical courses and doing this and doing the stuff that the Army tells you should do when you get out. And Tyler's always stuck with it. We've had some heart-to-heart conversations like, man, you are destined to be an actor. And this was in the last couple of years. Like, it is his destiny. Like, it's what he wants to do, and he's fucking done it. And
specifically work in Hollywood, not
not be an actor, but
I got
but be a producer, a writer, a director, an actor, and be involved in and I don't know much about the industry. That's why I just flubbed, saying Tyler being an actor. But because of that and because of who he is, he's now on the #1 drama on the #1 network in America on the SEAL Team show, and it's like just watching it is cool. And I think more veterans, specifically in like the Drinkin Bros community, is perfect. Like, if you're listening to this, do whatever the fuck you want to do. If you want to be a fly fishing guide or an artist or an actor or a producer or director, fucking do it. Don't get stuck in the stigma of I'm a fucking vet and I need to wear a blue hat where I go everywhere and I need to show everybody I'm a vet. Figure out who you want to be, reinvent yourself, and fucking do it. Like, borrow money if you have to. Be smart about it. Ask people for help, but start your own company. Do whatever you want to do. And he's the perfect example of how long you've been in Hollywood now doing stuff.
I mean, since I got out. I mean,
this is what, 10 years now?
Yeah, 10 years. Well, it's going back to what you said earlier, Ross. It's funny because one of my favorite sayings is, they say overnight success takes 10 years.
Yeah.
Which is funny because people come up to me now and they're like, oh my God, man, it just like happened all of a sudden. I'm like,
yeah.
No, actually, I've been doing this since I got out, like 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. And it's one of those things where it's just like, there was two things I wanted to do when I was a kid. One is I wanted to work in Hollywood, and two is I wanted to be in the military. And when I joined, like, when I first graduated high school, I moved to LA. And I was like, I'm going to work in Hollywood. And then I got out here and I was like, you know what? First of all, it sucked, as you know, Ross.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you're a kid. What the fuck do you know? And
it's hard.
They were right because I knew nothing.
And especially because you were like me, I didn't know anybody out here.
I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
I came out of here and I just started like
didn't have one connection, one person. Me neither. Yeah.
And so I looked at it and I was like, okay, realistically, like, and I don't know how I knew this at that age, but I went, okay, this is going to take some time, and it's always going to be here. The military is a young man's game. And if I don't go now, I'll probably never do it, because if I did find success in a year, like I was stupid enough, I'll probably make it in about a year. And I'll definitely not go in the military. But I was just like, you know what? I should do the military right now, because if I don't, I never will. And so then I went in, and then when I got out, I definitely had, I started trying, like the networking, and I mean, it is a ridiculous industry to try, and I don't think there is a harder industry to get into.
And there's no formula to figure it out.
There's no formula, and not only, actually, I would say the opposite though. Not only is there not the opposite. Not only is there no formula, but like every formula that everyone thinks is not just wrong, but like the formula for failure. Yeah. It's like a lot of people tell me, this is one of the things that I kind of made this up, and everyone's like, it's who you know. Okay. And now that's the world in general, but especially in Hollywood. They're like, dude, I hear Hollywood is who you know. And I've now been around long enough to go, I tell people, I'm like, well, it's who you know. And I go, no, it's not. It's who knows you.
Yeah. And how much hard work you put in.
Yeah. Well, but that goes to who knows you.
Yeah.
Because if I know you, so I know Ross, and Ross is doing a movie. I know Ross. If I go, hey, Ross, how's it going, man? I heard you're doing that movie.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I am.
That was a super good impression of yourself.
Thank you. I feel like I'm like good at it, but it's like it's not who knows you when you're casting or when you're looking for any person to work on a project you're doing. It's who you know that is not you, like is your actual friends or your actual, like they're not using you for what you're doing. They'll do a good job. They'll give 100% effort. It's like it's who will do a good job and do it for the right reasons and give 100% effort, not ask for shit. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
But everyone thinks they think all the networking is, well, I know this person, so now I know them, and now I know them. It's like, no. If they don't know you, if they don't consider you like a friend or an asset, it doesn't matter who you know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And my experience with it is when I did Range 15, it was the first time I worked with veterans. And when I say worked with veterans, I mean worked with them every single day on a day-to-day thing. And I saw how hard everybody worked. Everybody was on time, which is the exact opposite of people in Los Angeles. So now if I'm casting a film or working on a film or looking for crew, if I see on their resume that they were a fucking veteran, that's the first people I hire. I know I'm not going to have a goddamn problem with any of them. Whereas everybody else in LA, it's a goddamn mess. So back to what you were saying of you really can do anything in the entertainment industry and all that stuff. Being an actor is hard, and it doesn't matter what your background is or whatever.
No,
it's auditions, and there's no rhyme or reason to it, whether you're going to get the part or whether you're not going to get the part. But working in Hollywood, being,
absolutely.
Anything behind the scenes,
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
besides an actor,
Yep.
I can say that is hard work.
Absolutely.
And it's based on your work and your attitude.
Yep.
And if you start at the low level position, because you had the right attitude about it of like, I know this is going to take a long time. Everybody comes in with the opposite attitude of, man, this better take me like a year because I'm probably going to be out of money. I'm probably going to be poor. I can promise you this. To come into the entertainment industry to get started, you're going to be really fucking poor unless you had money from a previous thing or whatever. And then you're going to have to take the lowest level job you can possibly imagine and then work your way up from there. And this in particular, veterans, work so much harder than everybody else that they'll go further faster.
Yeah, you'll move quick, but you still got to start at the bottom. And that is actually a key problem right now I see in the veteran community, which is, and look, it's the way it is. It's like, okay, you did 10 years wherever. I don't care if you're in the coolest cool guy unit or freaking, you were water filtration battalion 7. It's like, I don't care where you were, whatever time you did in the military, when you get out, you start at zero.
Right.
You start at
That's
zero.
a huge...
And everyone's like, no, but you don't understand. Like, I was in combat. I was in charge of 5 dudes' lives and of $5 million worth of equipment. It's like, oh, okay, great. No one gives a fuck. And am I saying it's right? No, I'm saying it's reality. No one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough.
And it's tough.
One of the best.
But you just have to accept it.
I've heard the same story.
One of the best special forces guys I've ever met. Says I've heard him say it many times. My Green Beret. Now that I'm out, my Green Beret is not it won't help. It won't even clean my sunglasses. You know, for real. And it's like making that transition. But the other one, Tyler, I don't know how many companies Tyler's been involved with that just didn't work out. I don't know how many companies Evan's been involved with that haven't worked out.
So
I've been involved in companies and I was part of the problem that failed, now to this point. And guys get out and you think, man, this is going to be like the military. And it is not. I mean, people thank you for your service, but at the end of the day, the civilian and business world doesn't give a fuck. Like,
no.
It might get you in the door because it's on your resume and you have a really good background and you're a vet and you're motivated, but you still have to put in the work. And you're a private. You have to. You're private.
Let's say you get out as a E9 and you get into the civilian world. You are now an E1 buck private. Like, you're brand new. You're starting over. And I try and tell my friends this that are still in all the time. I go, look, dude.
You have to check your ego about all this shit.
Absolutely have to check your ego. But not only that, I try and explain. I go, look, you got to understand that I've been there. You haven't, I've been in. You haven't been out. And as hard as it was being in, I would argue, and I know if you're in right now, you're going to disagree with this, but I promise you, and Bert, back me up on this, it's harder being out than it is in.
For way harder, in my opinion.
I would rather be like the shit I go through on a daily basis. It's much easier just to be being shot at and be like, oh, all I have to do is freaking avoid,
I have to fill crypto on my radios, and I have to make sure my weapons are clean and maintenance. I have to make sure my med kit's good. I have to do planning and risk assessments for the range. But the other part of that is when you do that in the military, whether it's special forces, there's a structure. Yeah. Oh, and there's
a task condition.
There's 6 people
condition standard.
Yeah, whether it's Ranger Battalion with a platoon of guys or SF team with 12 guys, you have 30 guys or 12 guys to your left and right to help you.
You have a whole chain
to do
of
all this stuff.
Oh,
and if you can't figure it out, there's an entire battalion of people to help you out, or company level, then battalion level, then group level. It's when you get out and say start your own company, or you come to Hollywood on your own to be an actor, or you start a woodworking business, chances are you're not going to have anybody to help you at all.
Oh,
except you.
Yeah.
You have to put in the hours.
You are your own team leader, your own squad leader, your own platoon sergeant. You're your own commander, your own S1 shop, 2 shop, 3 shop, 4 shop, 5 shop. You're your own comms guy. You're everything.
Well, and I will say
you are everything.
The one thing the military does a really good job at, especially in the climate now from, say, 1999, 2000, or whatever, when things started heating up to now, that everybody that's joined the military, I don't care what branch you're in, Coast Guard, Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, everybody in the military right now, no matter what your job is on 24 hours because you never know what's going to happen in the world right now. That's the one thing that has helped me, I think, the most, is I've looked at these jobs and these companies I'm involved with that it's like the military. And like when I came to work at Black Rifle and Evan said, hey, I want you to work at Black Rifle, you and your wife. I literally went home and Candace and I talked and I said, this will be our deployment. This is going to be a 2 to 5 year deployment for us. And it is 24 hours a day, every fucking day. You're like that at Black Rifle. Dave is like that. Yeah. JT, Matt, Evan, all these guys. It is a deployment. And that's one thing the military is good at. It programs you. If you can take that mentality and go, okay, I'm going to take that 24-hour a day lifestyle and convert that to the military or the civilian world with a job, you will outwork your peers and you will beat everybody.
Well, yes. And to add on to that, which I think is an important point, is the worst thing that you can do is think that you're going to get out and slow down.
Yeah. Then that's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother
podcast. But you need to get out.
You
need to get out and work 10 times harder than you did when you were in.
Yeah, you guys hear me say it. I call Tyler the sidewalk prophet because he's got he's got a view on PTSD and military issues that is completely different from anybody I've ever met. And when we met, I don't have PTSD. I don't, maybe I do. I don't feel like I do. I don't have any issues like that with the military. I had a great service, great time.
Rambo.
I'm not trying to sound like I'm tough. I'm not, man. Trust me. I've got my own insecurities and my demons, but that's not one of them. But Tyler hit me with some of his prophecies, prophet stuff, the sidewalk prophet stuff that he talks about, like that. When you get out, slowing down, not slowing down. And when he and I had that talk about 4 years ago, It literally changed my life, and that's why I have the company I have. That's why I work at Black Rifle. That's why I have the wife I do. From a talk with Tyler, 2 hours of talking on 48 hours and no sleep doing an endurance event. And it changed my life forever. Not like, oh, you saved my life.
Right.
It literally switched me onto a path that I am on right now. And
well, I think everybody's like that. I mean, I can attest to one person during a conversation for, again, about an hour and a half that changed my life, work-wise and all that stuff. Do you have the same? Was there anybody who sat down and talked to you? Was just like, hey, man?
Trying to think. I mean, all those things. So kind of what Bert's talking about. So with the documentary, not to get off topic, but like I started basically a therapy session with myself. And I got the idea actually.
Were you filming it or just?
Yeah, I was filming it. So I got the idea from that, which is, I can't remember, but some dude made a movie. So he had schizophrenia, and he basically filmed himself every day. And then he had schizophrenia. So then he would watch himself and he would learn his different personalities. And he was trying to figure out, which I was like, oh, it's really interesting. And so I started doing it. Obviously, I'm not schizophrenic, at least that I know of.
Sure.
If the other me just,
it just shows up, yeah.
Let this me know that the other me was here. But, but it wasn't that. But I was like, I want to watch myself talking about things, and then I want to rewatch it a week later, a month later, and I want to like assess my own self. Like I'm going to be my own therapist, and from those. Recording the videos, talking about what I was pissed off about, what issues I had, whatever it was, I filmed it, then I rewatched them, and I started to see a pattern, and I started to see, okay, this is what I thought it was then, but watching it now, it's not really that. And I'm starting to see a pattern of these videos. And you can't see the pattern each day, but if you watch 10 days in a row or 10 videos in a row, 2 months later, you go, wow, there's a pattern here. And that's kind of where I came up with the short version is, the VA. I went to the VA and they're like, oh, you got PTSD, and I was just like, okay, what's PTSD? I mean, obviously, there's a popular media or there's a portrayal out there. Sure. And so then I started studying all these different. Okay, this is what people think it is, and this is what the VA is saying it is, and this is what this psych is saying. And I'm listening to all of them, and I'm like, well, you keep telling me what it is, and that's not how I feel. It's not how I feel. Do
you feel like they were trying to push you into that just to get an easy diagnosis of like, hey, let's get this guy out of here? Or
no, I don't think it's intentionally like I don't think it's intentional. What I think it is everything in a psych's world. There's a book called the DSM. I forget what it stands for. Bert, you might remember, but the DSM is like it's basically official, like the diagnosis of like mental disorders.
Dick sucking men, yeah.
It's something, it's DSM. But the DSM basically, so think of it this way, PTSD. You can legitimately have PTSD from being a kid and like your dad yelling at you. You could have actual PTSD from being in a car accident. You could have PTSD from a million different things. So it's a very broad term. So why are we using such a broad term to describe such a very specific occurrence, which is veterans of combat? Like, why is it PTSD? Because you could have PTSD from a million things. It's such a broad term.
Yeah, and
why are we using a broad term for a specific issue? And I'll tell you why. Because the real issue doesn't fit in their book of diagnosis. So what it comes down to is they're all telling me what it's supposed to be, and I'm going, this is what it feels like. And they're going, oh no, this is what it is. I go, this is what it feels like. It's a bunch of people trying to categorize something that they themselves have never personally experienced. How could they possibly know what it is? Yeah. They've been taught about what it is. So then they're going to tell you what they were taught, but they've never personally experienced it. So the only way that you really know is you go through it and then you go, okay, no, it's not what they're saying it is. So then I started going, okay, if it's not what they say it is, which I'm fucking 100% sure of, it's not what they've told me. So then I read all these books and I go, it's not what they've told me. None of these answers fit. So I'm like, I have to make my own answer. I'm going to make up an answer that fits what I feel. And I came up with the term LTSD.
Great term.
Right. And what does that stand for?
I do not have post-traumatic stress disorder. I have lack of traumatic stress disorder.
And explain that to the audience.
So what it's saying is post-traumatic stress is basically saying you had this traumatic stress, you were yelled at as a kid, you were in a car accident, or you were, blown up in combat, whatever. Okay. So then later you're like, having these, like you're in a car and now you're freaking out because you constantly think that you're going to get into a wreck because that is a post-traumatic stress event. Or somebody starts yelling at you and you kind of, for a generic term, it's a flashback to somebody just yells at you and you immediately go back to your dad yelling at you, whatever. Or for a combat vet, it's you were blown up and then, the stereotypical bullshit firecrackers and you're like, oh my God, fucking jump on the ground and grenade, right? So what I learned with the concept of LTSD, and I'll actually say where it came from. Where it came from is the aha moment was I was driving. So what I did for a long time, actually up until I got this last show, is bodyguarding. I bodyguarded with Bert, but I was a bodyguard for a long time. So I was bodyguarding. This is actually in LA, and you'll know exactly where this is. So I was driving. I got done with some freaking party. I don't remember. And I was driving home, and it was like 3 a.m, and I was on Sunset approaching Crescent Heights. And I was just kind of out of it. It was like probably a 14-hour day. I was just fucking tired. And next thing you know, out of nowhere, there's no cars on the street. It was like a light fog, and these fire trucks are coming at me, like literally towards me. And I stop. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? And these fire trucks were seemingly coming from all the way around. One parks damn near right in front of me. I stop in the middle of the road, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Because usually, they pass you, whatever. And,
sure.
I stop, and I look over to my right, and at that corner, there's a sushi place.
Yep.
It's kind of deep across the parking lot. It's about, 75 yards across the parking lot.
Yeah, but close enough that you can see everything.
So I look over, and this fucking place is on fire. And, I can see the fire. I can see the smoke. And I'm just kind of looking at it. And then the next thing I know, like a flash, I'm fucking running in the parking lot.
You are?
Yeah. I see the smoke, I see the fire. The next thing like I said, I was so fucking tired, I was kind of out of it.
Sure.
But the next thing I remember, I'm in the middle of the parking lot running towards this fucking fire. And all these firemen are running. The dude strikes up a quickie saw, because they had to cut into it. And I look over, and there's these firemen, and no one's really paying attention to me, but I remember one of the firemen is looking at me, as he's kind of like, what the fuck? And I remember seeing him and stopping, and his look of what the fuck? And he didn't say anything. I obviously was just kind of going, but he looked at me and was like, what the fuck? And then it stopped me. And then I was kind of came to, and I was like, what the fuck? And I walked back to my truck, and I got in my truck. And I just sat there. I don't know how long it was, maybe 10 minutes. I mean, I don't even remember what happened with the fire. I just remember sitting there going, what in the fuck was that? I had so much adrenaline in my system. I felt like I could grab the fire truck and throw it. The key point was that moment. As soon as, up until the fireman looked at me, was the happiest I'd been since I got out. Was the happiest I'd been since I got blown up. Because
you were going back and saving somebody or trying to attempt to save.
I felt useful. I felt this is my shit. This is my jam. This is where I feel this is what I do.
Yeah.
And I just sat there, and I had to completely figure out this whole thing. And it finally hit me. I'm like, LTSD is lack of traumatic stress. I don't have a problem with traumatic stress. I like traumatic stress. I like the chaos. I like the danger. I like the risk. I love the adrenaline. I hate the calm. I hate the lack of chaos. I hate fucking regular life is boring. I want shit to be fucking crazy. Like, that's what I sat there in the car and I was like, this, fuck. Like, I should be there doing that. That's what I want to do. And obviously, like, fighting fires is something I didn't do in the military. It's not the point. It's a chaotic situation. So then I'm sitting there. People will tell you the most addictive drug. It's heroin. It's this. Bullshit. It's adrenaline. That is the most addicting drug in the world. And I sat there and I went, okay, how did this happen? And then I realized when you've got, this is regular society. Okay. This is war. Okay. Would you agree that they're pretty much 180 degree opposites?
Yeah.
I mean, they should be.
They're polar opposites.
They're polar opposites.
Absolutely.
If you got a first world society, war should be 180 degree opposite.
Right.
So just logically, if you're good in a regular society, you should suck in a wartime environment. Conversely, once you've been through the training process and the adjustment and the wartime experience, once you get good at war, by definition, you suck at society.
Especially the American societal norm of 40 hours a week, 8 to 5, a white picket fence. Like, it is not for combat veterans. Like,
especially
they find it. There's a lot of them that do, but
it's an adjustment period. Like,
it is a real hard adjustment.
As you adjust to one, it takes years to get adjusted to get trained and have the experience. It takes years. And that process, what I like to call it, you get rewired. And what I really like to say is you're reverse wired. This is calm. This is chaos. The training process and combat experience reverse wires you to be calm in chaos. So once you become calm in chaos, you need the chaos to be calm. So when the environment of war is chaotic, but you've been reverse wired. So now in the environment, when the environment is chaos, your brain is totally calm because that's how you survive in war. The side effect is now when the environment is calm, the chaos has to be somewhere. So now it's in your brain. So what I call LTSD and what most people call PTSD, but I call LTSD, is when the environment is calm and the chaos is in your mind, how do you calm your mind? You create the chaos in your environment.
Yeah, and for me, and I called Tyler the first day when I went to work for Buster on the ranch that they did branding and sorting. There was a lot of chaos. Not chaos. They've obviously controlled. They've been doing it for 200 years the same way, but it was just horses moving and 1,500-pound cows everywhere and calves and yearlings moving around and pens and just branding irons, and it was just chaotic for me. I remember distinctly at 7 o'clock that night, getting in my truck, leaving the ranch, pulling off on the side of the road, and Tyler's the first person I called, and I was like, motherfucker, LTSD, because he had the talk with me a year before that, but it was like, I called Tyler and was like, man, I just figured out LTSD in a physical experience right there that day in that moment. That was my aha moment, and it was the exact thing Tyler's talking about. It was that chaos of moving, shaking, dangerous stuff around a cow that could kick your teeth out, horses. Right. That, and if you can follow what Tyler's talking about of LTSD, if vets out there that are having issues can find that and replace that traumatic stress in a safe manner like that, whatever it is, and I'm not saying go out skydive like Travis Pastrana between plane to plane with no parachute on or doing stupid shit, but there's ways to replace that. There's ways to create and replace that and make that transition.
Absolutely. And the one thing I want to say though is to really the bigger key, I believe, is not just recognizing how to replace it, but also recognize the chaos that you're creating to calm your mind. Examples of this would be drinking too much, drinking and driving, drugs, getting in fights with girlfriends, or dating crazy
Dating
girls,
crazy,
or
sex
dating
addiction,
crazy guys if you're a woman,
whatever
or
it is. And that's,
whatever crazy thing that, buying a motorcycle and freaking everywhere you go, you're 140 miles per hour. Like, all those things are creating chaos in the environment so you can feel calm.
But there's also an illusion with all of those that you can control that chaos. Like, as a veteran, most people are like, oh, I can drink a beer and have one Ambien.
Or seven.
Or seven, and then it becomes 3 beers and, 4 Ambiens, or whatever it is, whatever that motorcycle, skydive, and that stuff. The other part of that is veterans, I think, because you're in the military, and the military tells you from basic training, kill, 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 blood makes the grass grow, you're a killer, you can control all this. There's a fine line of realizing that what you can control and what you can't. And I think some of that stuff, drugs, alcohol, sex, dangerous stuff, gambling,
like,
you name it. Veterans, again, like, it's hard to control that stuff.
So let me ask you now, and this is the big question: do you today, in your current life, with what you do, think that you have found an adequate replacement for all of that chaos? So what you're doing, because you found a lot of success now. Have you replaced that? Like, is this enough for you, the current job you have now in the entertainment industry?
Yes. What I love is like and Bert's been on set.
I've been on the set a few times.
It's level 10 crazy. Like, it is crazy. A network TV show. I mean, we're shooting an episode. We're shooting essentially an hour show every 8 days.
Yeah.
We did this season 22 episodes. We have 2 left, but it's a 22 episode season. It's insanity. While we're filming one for 8 days, we're editing the last one, doing post on the last one, and writing the next, or giving notes on the next 5 or 10. I mean, every day, like, my head is in 4,000 different directions. It takes 100% of my focus, my focus and my mental capacity, and it's absolutely couldn't be more chaotic. And I love the chaos of it.
Yeah.
And being out on the set of that show,
I figured,
and you mentioned it when Steve Howie was on the podcast, and then also when Clayne Crawford was on there, that it's real easy. And I was one of those people to look at from the outside, and, watching a Hollywood production, specifically like a network TV show, when I went out, the couple times I've been out to the set on SEAL Team, these guys, I was out there for Tyler's birthday, surprised him, came out there for his birthday.
Totally.
And after about 10 minutes of having cake and stuff, it was like, hey, and this was at like 9:00 at night.
Yeah,
it was like,
late.
Okay, even to the A-list actors that are on there, David Boreanaz and those guys.
Fucking over.
It was like, hey,
lunch is
party's
over.
Get back to work, and there's 70 people running around, and it's just chaos. But watching him on set, you can just tell. Like, Jack and I just sat back and watched him the last time we were out there. And again, obviously, he's not jumping out of helicopters or fast roping on targets. They're not shooting at bad guys.
Well, at least not for real.
Not for real.
That does happen on the show.
They are doing it, but you know what I mean? It's not a combat
it's make
zone.
Believe, yeah.
But watching Tyler and Dan, it is very much, it's got that chaos of planning and chaos and controlled chaos. And it's goal oriented, and by no means, because somebody out there's going to go, that motherfucker just say that he said making a TV show is like war. No, I'm not saying that. But
I'll compare it like this. It's not like war. The similarity between making a TV show and war is both are extreme logistical problems. Just one has a very real life risk and a cost, and the other doesn't. But
it's not just Hollywood. This is making
business.
This is making a $50 million a year annual coffee company, or making an apparel company, or again, I keep saying like woodworker or fly fishing guide and starting your own business. Like again.
I got a new thing that you haven't heard, and it hit me one day, and I was talking about all these different things, and I was talking to business. It was a group of business people, and we were talking, and I was comparing all these business lessons to war, and it was really business plus like life motivational stuff, and I was comparing it to war, and they're like, and one of them just goes, why do all of your like life lessons like, why do you compare them all to war? And it's just one of those things where he said it, and I just looked at him and I said, because life is war. It's a war. Your life is a war. Fucking life wants to fight you every fucking day. Your entire life is a battle. It's a war, and every fucking day is a battle.
And if it isn't, it's boring.
And if it isn't, you're fucking doing it wrong. If it isn't a war, you're fucking losing.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Like, your life is a war. Every day is a fucking battle. You may not win every fucking battle, but if you fight every fucking day, you will win the war. And that's the fucking key. Like, that's the key. It never ends. And that's the thing is when you get out, when you go from active to veteran, like, the war does not end. Just the battleground changes. And that's it. You need to fight fucking harder because now you're fighting literally for yourself. And back in the day, you're like, oh yeah, well, I'm fighting for the dudes on my left and the guys on my right. Now you're fighting for your fucking self because you're out. And when you get that opportunity, when I met Bert, what you need to do, you get out, you're solo. You need to find those guys.
Yeah,
on
you
your
just
left and on
took
your
the
right.
words out of my mouth.
That's the key. Find a new team.
I
Find a
found that
assault
new
team.
fire team or assault
Yep.
team like Tyler, Jack, you, Ross, Matt, Evan, JT, Dave. This crew, but like one of the veteran companies, and I think Mike Glover's been on Launch Code, but he has Fieldcraft Survival, and they've adopted the term tribe. And they, find your tribe, find people, keep those people close to you. And anybody else's opinion, obviously you can't be mean to people, but anybody else's opinion outside your tribe doesn't fucking matter. If they're not attributing or contributing to your tribe or your team, they don't fucking matter. Who gives a fuck what anybody says on social media? Who gives a fuck what anybody bad has to say about you? If they're not in your tribe or they're not on your team, who gives a fuck? Let it go. And I think veterans have a real problem with that. I specifically have, getting beat up about certain stuff because I'm vocal and I'm a bit of an asshole. And I've had my battles with insecurity, like I think most people do, where stuff people said that I brought on myself affected how I feel. And now it's like, one, I'm trying not to be an asshole, but two, you just let shit roll off your back and not give a fuck. Find the people that you need to be that make you better. And I think part of that, whether it's Tyler, Jack, you as an accomplished actor, director, writer, Matt and Evan, don't be afraid to surround yourself with people that are a lot better at everything than you are. And I think that's a real problem for people. People want to be the smartest person in the room.
I don't know why it is though.
They want to look great. And I've resigned to my fate again with my own company that I'm about to, turn over to somebody else to run my company because they can do it better than me. And I think people are afraid to resign to their fate of you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Surround yourself with better people that can bring you to their level as they grow to the next level. And I think people have a real problem with that.
They do. But that's the only way you're going to grow as a person.
That's it.
Is if you're learning from everyone else around you.
Yeah. If you're sitting in the room and you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, which you're probably not ever, not you specifically, but anybody.
Yeah.
You probably ought to question if you're hanging out with the right people.
You know what, though? I think there's a two-part. I agree with that 100%, and I think there's another part that is plaguing people in general, but I think especially kids today, and that is there's this fallacy that, like, you can be anything you want and you could be good at everything. And
it's not true.
Not true.
No.
I can't be an astronaut because I'm not good at math.
No, you can't be good at everything.
I'm not good at math.
At a certain point, real strength is accepting and recognizing your own weaknesses. And it's just like, no matter how much, like, realistically, I could train every day for the rest of my life, and I'm never going to be an Olympic pole vaulter.
No, and
I'm never going to be a marginal swimmer. It's just not. I don't float.
Yeah.
Period. Bert knows this.
Well, and
I
that's
literally don't float.
We had I think you even titled the episode "Why Bert Can't Be" or "Why Bert Doesn't Want to Be a CEO." I can do everything at my company, and I could probably do CEO. But if somebody else can do it better than me and has my best interest in mind, not a problem handing that over.
Yeah, I don't either. And like things that I'm not good at, I have no problem admitting that. I wish everybody else was like that, but they.
But see, you have no problem admitting it. But the step one is
Recognize-
recognizing that you can't be good at everything.
Right.
Like we sell this, hey, everyone's equal, everyone's the same. You could be good at anything. You could do whatever you want.
No,
I
you
know,
can't.
it's
No,
not-
you
that's
can't.
like
Yeah.
even
Not
further
true.
for me, which is super taboo because nobody
Like,
ever
you-
says it. Like I've been to Sephardic, the best shooting course the Army has to offer in Special Forces. I was on an assault team, and people always ask me, "What kind of guns do you have? You know, are you a good shooter?" And Tyler knows. I'm the first guy to go, man. On my best day on an SF team, there was 8 guys to the right of me that were better shooters than me, and 4 guys to the left of me that weren't as good as me. I'm not the guy. If you want a shooter and want somebody who's really good at shooting, which is, you know, people look at me like, you know, like I got a
What?
dick growing out of my forehead. And I'm like, man, it's okay to say
Yeah,
you're a Green
I'm
Beret and
not
you're
the
not
best, yeah.
you're not the best shooter. Like it's all right to say it. I'm good enough with a gun to kill anybody I have to defend my family, my friends. But outside of that, I'm not the best shooter, and that's difficult. You know, I wish more people would say that. And
Well,
Yeah,
but
they don't.
it's-
They
You
don't.
bring up a good point, especially in the special operations community. It's like, you know, it's the same thing where people, you know, they're like, oh, you know, do you guys do blank, blank, and blank? And I'm like, look, like you realize we're no different than anyone else. Like there's only so much time. You can only be the best at so many things. Like
Yeah.
maybe, you know, the best in the world is the best in the world at one thing. Like what I think some special operations units, like where I came from, I think our thing was we were really good at being really good at a lot of things. Not the best at any one thing, but really good about being pretty damn good in a lot of things. And that's its own like specific, that broadness is its own specificity.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, you know, it's just like, you know, shooting's a good example of something. It's like, I mean, what percentage of combat is shooting? Not really that much.
Right.
You know, not that
Not
much.
even
And-
in the best of the best of the best units, like where Tyler came from. When you look at it, the training and the planning and everything else that goes into it, whether it's a dental appointment so you can deploy all the way up to getting the latest to greatest equipment, going after the baddest people on the planet, that cool guy section of actually shooting at people is a very small amount of time.
yeah, it's a whole lot of,
Like it's-
you know,
it's a
burning
very
shit in
small amount of-
Afghanistan.
Yeah. Burning
No.
shit to burn barrel and pooping
Yeah,
in an MRE
yeah,
box.
and then smelling the fumes. And,
Speaking of that, where the fuck is JT?
Oh, still in the bathroom,
I have a
and
funny feeling
he
and
made
yeah.
it sleepy
Look,
time.
I think he's
either
good.
way, the fact that he missed this episode, like he's
I
gonna
think-
hate himself after listening.